Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in really one of those intense environments in modern medicine. We're talking about that critical race against time for patients with, well, refractory cardiac arrest and acute cardiogenic shock.
It's a situation where every second truly counts.
Absolutely. And we've got research here from two major European centers, Prague and Wrocław. Our mission for you today is, well, twofold. First, figure out what's really killing patients getting the most advanced resuscitation out there. And second, look at how a sort of revolutionary organizational structure, these specialized shock teams, are achieving, frankly, massive survival gains.
Yeah, and maybe before we dive in, it's probably good to define the core intervention we're discussing here. When we say refractory, we mean standard CPR hasn't worked. The next step, the big escalation, is ECPR.
Extracorporeal cardiopulmonary resuscitation?
Exactly. ECPR means putting the patient on VA ECMO support, veno-arterial extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, like right away. You're basically cannulating them immediately to bypass the heart and lungs. It keeps blood flowing, keeps oxygen going. It buys time.
The crucial bridge.
A crucial bridge, exactly. But, despite how advanced this is for severe out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, or OHCA, the mortality, historically, it's been stubbornly high, often over 70%.
Okay, so let's tackle that problem first then. The Prague study. Researchers at the General University Hospital in Prague looked back over a decade, didn't they? 2012 to 2023.
That's right, a pretty significant cohort of ECPR patients.
They treated 210 people with ECPR, but unfortunately 152 of them died. That puts the mortality rate at, what, 72.3%?
Yeah.
Still very high.
Soberingly high, yes.
In the typical patient, it paints a picture, doesn't it? Mostly men, around 80%.
Yeah, 80.9% male. And the median age was about 57.
Late 50s. And the timing element seems critical, too. The median time from the actual cardiac arrest to getting ECPR started was 62 minutes.
Just over an hour?
An hour where the body is, well, enduring incredible stress before this life support even begins.
And that's where the Prague findings really challenge, I think, some long-held assumptions, especially for this specific group. See, normally, if someone has a cardiac arrest but gets their heart restarted spontaneously, ROSC, return of spontaneous circulation.
Right, ROSC patients.
We always worry most about the brain. Anoxic brain injury is usually the top killer in those cases.
Okay, that's the standard thinking.
But Prague found, for their ECPR patients, it was different. Refractory shock, basically, the circulatory system just completely failing beyond repair, that was the #1 cause of death.
Really? Not the brain?
Not primarily. Shock accounted for almost half, 49.3% of the deaths. Neurological injury was second, quite close at 45.3%. But shock led the way. Essentially, the heart and circulation gave out before the brain did in many cases.
Wow. So hold on. If doctors have traditionally prioritized aggressive brain protection strategy.
Cooling the body, yeah.
Does this Prague data suggest that for these refractory ECPR patients, maybe the focus needs to shift, especially in those critical first few days?
It strongly suggests a tactical adjustment, yes. This specific group, the ones needing ECPR, they seem to be a different beast compared to standard ROSC patients. Remember, the ECMO machine is handling the lungs job.
Right. Gas exchange.
So respiratory failure is largely taken off the table as a cause of death. What's left is this profound circulatory collapse.
And the timing you mentioned earlier really highlights how fast this happens. Looking at the patients who died in the Prague study, nearly 60% were gone within just 3 days.
3 days, it's incredibly rapid.
And almost 80% died within the first week.
That first week is absolutely critical.
But here's the really stark finding, the one that pinpoints when things go irreversibly wrong. Of the patients who died within the very first 24 hours, an overwhelming majority, 90.3% of them, died from that refractory shock.
90% in the first day due to shock. That's a powerful statistic. It really forces us to think about where resources and immediate interventions should be targeted. Meaning, if patients are dying almost immediately from the inability to maintain blood pressure from shock, then getting their hemodynamics stabilized, like right away, becomes the absolute top priority.
More so than even starting neuroprotection.
Well, you can't effectively protect the brain if the patient dies from shock first, can you? Plus, there's another factor. When you restore circulation after an arrest, especially with ECMO, you often trigger this massive inflammatory response. It's called SIRS.
Systemic inflammatory response syndrome.
Exactly. It's like the body overreacts, causing widespread inflammation, which then leads to multi-organ failure. So in these ECPR patients, you're battling not just the initial arrest, but this immediate post-resuscitation shock and the SIRS that follows. Those are the immediate killers.
Okay, so Prague clearly defines the enemy. Refractory shock, hitting hard and fast, especially in that first 72-hour window. Which logically leads to the next question. How can a healthcare system actually fight back against something so rapid and devastating?
Yeah, how do you organize for that kind of speed and precision?
And that's where our second set of sources comes in, showing some really dramatic results from a systemic approach. We're talking about this concept of the shock team, specifically the one pioneered in Wrocław, Poland.
Right. The Wrocław shock team, they started in 2021, and it was, I believe, the first dedicated multidisciplinary team approach for managing cardiogenic shock, or CS, in Poland. They operate from a central hub hospital.
A hub and spoke model.
Exactly. Coordinating care for the most severe patients across a network of surrounding spoke hospitals. And this team isn't just a committee that meets occasionally. It's described as a deployable unit.
Who's on the team?
You've got interventional cardiologists, cardiac surgeons, anesthesiologists, intensivists, all working together. And their goal is radical standardization, consistent assessment, making timely decisions about using mechanical circulatory support.
MCS, like special heart pumps.
Yeah, things like Impella devices or balloon pumps, IABP, and critically, ensuring rapid pathways to the most advanced therapies if needed, like heart transplants or LVADs.
LVADs, left ventricular assist devices.
Right. It's also worth noting the most common trigger for shock in their patients was acute coronary syndrome, ACS, basically heart attacks. That was about 55% of cases.
Okay, so a highly organized, multidisciplinary team focused on standardized rapid care. What were the results?
Well, this is where it gets really impressive. They looked at 257 patients admitted with cardiogenic shock over those 3 years, 2021 to 2023. And the improvement in survival, specifically in hospital mortality, was steep.
How steep?
Overall mortality fell from 75.3% in 2021.
Okay, starting high, similar to the ECPR group.
Right, down to 44.1% in 2023.
Wait, 75 down to 44? That's more than a 30 percentage point drop in just 2 years.
It's a massive improvement, truly astounding for such a critically ill population. And if you drill down into the subgroup of patients who actually received mechanical circulatory support, MCS, the results are even more striking. Mortality in that group plummeted from 75% in 2021 down to 29.4% in 2023.
75 down to less than 30. That's unbelievable.
It really is. And what's fascinating is how they achieved this.
It wasn't just using more pumps, more MCS devices.
Apparently not. The data showed that the overall rate of MCS use stayed pretty similar across the years, around 39% of patients. So it wasn't just about throwing more technology at the problem.
So what was it then?
It strongly suggests the gains came from, well, getting better at it. Better patient selection for MCS, much faster decision-making and timing of intervention, and just the growing experience and coordination of the team itself. It seems like the organization, the logistics, made the biggest difference.
The system engineering, almost.
Yeah, exactly. The system. And the data kind of backs up this learning curve idea. Their analysis showed that using MCS became a significant predictor of better survival only in the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023, suggesting they figured out how to use it optimally over time.
And what about that hub and spoke model? Did that prove effective?
Hugely effective. Look at the patients transferred in from the spoke hospitals, often further away, potentially sicker. Their mortality rate dropped from a really tough 78.6% in 2021 down to 31.8% in 2023.
Again, a massive improvement for transferred patients. That really speaks volumes about making specialized care accessible regionally.
It does, and they attributed that success largely to better education and, crucially, very efficient communication protocols between the hub and the spokes, getting everyone on the same page quickly.
Makes sense. Did they identify other factors influencing outcomes?
Yes, the analysis also showed, unsurprisingly perhaps, that getting patients to advanced therapies like heart transplant or LVADs significantly improves survival. On the other hand, older age and needing kidney support CRRT, continuous dialysis, were linked to a worse prognosis.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this.
Yeah.
We have Prague identifying the key enemy in these refractory arrest cases. It's that incredibly fast-acting refractory shock, especially in the first 72 hours.
Right. The what?
And then we have Wrocław demonstrating a powerful strategy to combat it, the standardized, coordinated, rapid response shock team.
The how. focusing on organization, timing, and team expertise.
A really compelling picture. Now, we should acknowledge the limitations, right? These are single-center studies looking back retrospectively.
Absolutely. Important context. They mainly look at in-hospital mortality, too, not necessarily long-term outcomes or neurological function in survivors. But even with those caveats, they raise some really critical clinical questions that we still need to answer.
Like what? If timing is so crucial.
Well, exactly when is the optimal moment to escalate care? For a patient on standard ECPR, when do you pull the trigger for something more? Like adding specific support to unload the left ventricle, or maybe jumping straight to a more powerful device like an Impella 5.5. Nailing down that timing is tough.
And what about the really advanced options?
Yeah, when should doctors perhaps bypass intermediate steps altogether and aim directly for an LVAD implant, or list for urgent heart transplantation as a bridge? Those are high-stakes decisions.
Big decisions. And you mentioned SIRS earlier, that inflammatory cascade.
Right, that's the other huge challenge. How do we effectively block or at least limit that systemic inflammation, the SIRS? It acts almost like a silent killer after circulation is restored, damaging organs even in patients who initially survive the ECPR run. Finding ways to manage SIRS in ECPR patients is a major frontier.
So wrapping this up for our listeners, what's the core takeaway here?
I think it's pretty powerful, the future of saving lives in these extreme cardiac emergencies. It seems it lies not just in inventing newer, shinier technology.
Faster pumps, smaller devices.
Right. But maybe even more importantly, it lies in the organization and execution of care. System engineering, like you said, standardized protocols, expert multidisciplinary teams working seamlessly, rapid, coordinated action. That seems to be where the biggest gains are being made right now.
It's about the playbook, not just the players or the equipment.
Well put. Which leads us to maybe a final provocative thought for you to chew on.
Okay.
If simply organizing medical teams better, implementing standardized logistics like the Wrocław shock team, if that can cut mortality by over 30 percentage points in arguably the sickest cardiac patients we see, where else in medicine could we see radical improvements? Think about other complex, time-sensitive conditions, severe sepsis, massive stroke. Could similar team-based, standardized, rapid response models unlock comparable gains there too? Maybe the biggest breakthroughs aren't always technological, but organizational.
A really compelling question about the power of the system itself. Food for thought indeed. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.